Good evening and welcome to another episode of A Journey in Boots from Trauma to Triumph. I am your co-host, Dorothy Odell. I'm the owner and founder of Unstoppable Overcomers Productions, full service agency here. And this podcast is not only on Spotify, but it is on our YouTube channel as well. So go check us out. And I'm super excited because we're this close to getting on a veteran podcast as well. And I'm gearing towards, if anybody has any connections to the veteran TV, there's this I know the owner's name is Joe. Connect me and we'll talk. But with that though, I want to introduce my amazing co-host, Dr. J. Welcome back for another amazing week.
Hello.
This is my favorite show that I do.
That's awesome. I'm glad. I'm been very blessed and very lucky to have the people that I have found throughout the years to be able to go, yeah, I'll go on your podcast. And I'm like, are you sure? But so I am the owner and founder of Semper Modus. It is a private practice that is derived of individuals who are licensed therapists and interns who are working. They have served, though they're serving those who served. Basically, they served in their community and or their country, and then they go and kind of give back in a different way. So we do outpatient therapy and many interventions to assist those in need for a myriad of issues that they might be having, whether it be relationship, faith-based, grief and loss, narcissistic abuse, serious mental health disorders like bipolar schizophrenia. We got a clinician for you. So whatever you're struggling with, we are here to serve. Who I want to bring on is the lovely Tony Joyce. He is having a fundraiser this weekend, and I have had the honor and privilege of being able to dive with him and his lovely wife. And I know Tony personally, so I want to let him just kind of go through his story because it is an amazing story. So welcome, Tony.
Thank you very much. It's a privilege to be here. I really appreciate the invitation. My story, well, it is kind of funny. You can't
Where
get blown
up. Start there.
You can't get blown up and, shot, stabbed without, having a decent story, I guess.
That's true.
So I'm a redneck. I will not apologize for that. If you can't hear the accent, give me a couple of drinks. I'll make sure that you hear it.
True.
I grew up in
that. Absolutely.
I grew up in Western North Carolina on a cattle ranch, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, I had a great childhood. I can't say that, it was perfect, but whose is?
Right.
But I decided that I was going to enlist in the military when I was
by yourself, or were you recruited? Like, I went with a buddy I drag raced with, and he's like, I'm going in the Air Force. And I'm like, what's the Air Force? And so, you always get recruited by somebody else.
That's true. For me, this was pre 9/11. So one of my best friends in college went to the FBI. He went to law school, got a law degree. I left law school and changed my major because, somebody told me that I was not going to make a good lawyer. Sooner or later, I'd have to prosecute somebody I knew was innocent or defend somebody I knew was guilty. And I was like, that's a fair point. So
and I don't see you as very argumentative either. Like, you're like, yeah, whatever. You're a very laid back individual.
Pretty much.
So, I can see you as a person that wouldn't want to fight like that.
No. So it was a good move. I got degrees in criminal psychology and chemistry, oddly enough. Yeah.
Because those two go together never.
No. The only reason I got a chemistry degree was honestly because I was chasing a girl.
Oh, that's a good reason.
And my counselor came up to me one day and he goes, and this is my junior year, he goes, Tony, you got about 2 more classes in chemistry and you'll have another degree. And I'm like, really? I don't think that's a thing. But yeah, so I finished University of South Carolina in 95, and I was working construction projects for a retail company, and decided that I was away from home too much. So I was like, okay, so I called my buddy from college and I said, hey, how do I get in the FBI? And they said, okay, go in the military, do 4 years as a MP, military police, get out, you got a federal firearms license, and you go straight in. I was like, sweet, I'll do that. Because I always wanted to go in federal law enforcement. So
Interesting.
98, I enlisted. I chose ordnance. I got
What's ordnance? Because you have civilians on here that don't know what you're talking about.
You're very right. So we basically man the ammunition supply points.
Okay.
We count bullets and BBs.
This is in the Navy, you said?
This was actually in the Army.
So you went Army first.
I started Army.
I know this. I'm just letting the world know.
Yeah, that's fair point. I got bored really quickly, as you would expect, counting BBs with 2 college degrees.
Did you at least go in the military at a higher rank because you had an education?
No, actually, I was like an E3, bottom of the barrel.
Why did you go enlisted? So what was I'm trying to understand why you didn't choose to be an officer.
So officers in the Army do not get to choose their branch until after they've checked the blocks in all the other branches.
Interesting.
So if you go in as an EOD officer, you can't actually stay EOD until after you've gone through the other disciplines. So
gotcha.
At that time, I was like, no, I'm going to do ordnance and I'm going to stay ordnance as long as I want to. At that time, I didn't know what EOD was. So
neither does our audience. You have to explain it.
EOD is basically military bomb squad. It's explosive ordnance disposal.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
It's kind of a misnomer because
let's blow shit up.
Yeah, pretty much. We spend a lot of time disarming stuff, keeping it from blowing up. That's like our main.
You get to blow it up later?
Yes, we do.
Oh,
I think the biggest ordnance disposal we did that I can remember was like 500,000 pounds of explosive. It shattered windows 3 miles away.
Wow.
It was crazy. It was crazy.
That's like Tony Stark in Iron Man. Like, that's awesome. I mean, as long as they blew it up where it's safe, it's awesome. I mean, nobody, wants to get hurt. But
well, I don't know. There's a lot of Afghanis without windows about that time.
That's true.
But I digress. So I got bored counting BBs, and I told my first sergeant, I said, I need something else to do. He goes, I got just the thing for you. So he sent me, I was stationed at Redstone Arsenal in Alabama. Hot, humid. They call it Rocket Town because that's where a lot of the major defense contractors build, explosives and rocket motors.
Gotcha.
So I went over there, did talk to the EOD guys, and they did some testing with me. Back then it was a tap suit test. Now they use the bomb suit, which is a Kevlar lined, actually kind of breathes a little bit. Back then it was the chemical rubber, butyl rubber. It makes you look like Gumby suit. There's no breathing in that thing. None whatsoever. They'd stop me about every half an hour and dump my boots out of water and rehydrate. But anyway, back in the old days. So I went EOD and went to EOD school and graduated. And
you were still in the Army at this point?
I was still at the Army.
Okay.
I was still in the Army. at that point. And then 9/11 kicked off, and we found ourselves overseas a lot. We were attached to a lot of special operations units back then because they all needed EOD techs, mainly for improvised explosive devices and booby traps. We did a lot of that stuff. It was good work. Afghanistan was, I want to say it's a lot of fun, but it was really good EOD type work. You're disarming bombs. Iraq, not so much. That one kind of sucked. But
I hear that from everybody, actually.
Yeah.
They're like, Afghanistan was cool, but then Iraq sucked. And I'm like, yeah, I get it.
It's fair. Well, Iraq was really, or Afghanistan was really spread out. So like my job, I was attached to special operations units that patrolled the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan. So we were basically hunting Al-Qaeda cells back then, trying to find the bad guys because they were bouncing across the border back and forth all over the place.
Right.
And then we started running out of Navy EOD techs, and they asked for volunteers, and they were like, hey, who can dive, who can jump out of perfectly good airplanes? God knows why you'd want to do that. I had no desire to jump out of a perfectly good airplane. I volunteered to dive because I got certified as a civilian diver when I was in high school, like 86, long time ago. Yes, I'm old. But so the first
it's a state of mind, Tony. It's a state of mind.
That's
it's
true.
Distinguished. It's not old. It's distinguished.
And nobody is old in the water. Just saying.
That's very true. Ask my grandson who swam a mile doing a cleanup dive yesterday.
That's awesome.
That's fun. He's almost 13.
I love that.
But yeah, so they asked for volunteers, and I said, yeah, I can dive. No problem. First thing they did, send me to jump school. I was like, wait.
It's like volunteering. It's like saying, I know how to use the fire extinguisher, and you got to take out the trash.
Yeah,
same.
There you go.
Same logic.
I was like, wait, I didn't volunteer to jump out of a perfectly good airplane. I know water. I don't. So
I don't do sky, people.
It's like, come on, give me a break.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we trained up to dive and to jump, and then we started getting attached to all kinds of units, back and forth. We spent a couple of weeks there, a couple of months back and forth, and all over the world. Anywhere there was bad people trying to do bad stuff, we showed up. I ended up, oddly enough, my partner was one of the team leaders at that time. He ended up in all the hot places. I ended up in all the cold places. I was like, why does this? I want to switch. I want to go to Chile and South America. And no, they send me to Russia and Bosnia. Bosnia was not a lot of fun, I'm just going to say, back then. And then Iraq. And at about this time, I switched. They asked, I was getting ready to end term of service, ETS, out of the Army, and the Navy guys were like, hey, why don't you come over and work for us? Yeah. So I started working for the Navy and did the same thing in a different suit. But I ran with a lot of really great people. Unfortunately, Iraq, you were very spot on when you say Iraq sucked, because we lost more people in Iraq than we ever did in Afghanistan because of the rules of engagement. And
I do more counseling on the Iraq deployments than any other deployment ever.
Because they were,
and that includes Vietnam veterans.
That's bad.
That tells you something.
It does. it was bad because they would not let us most of the time defend ourselves.
Right.
So we lost a lot of good people. I actually got blown up twice. The third one was in Afghanistan. The first one was in Afghanistan, but knocked unconscious. TBI, traumatic brain injury, wasn't a thing back then. They didn't call it that. We just got knocked unconscious. And when we woke up, they handed us a bottle of Motrin and said, "Have a good day."
That's actually where I met him, is the TBI clinic at Dr. Tuturi's.
Yes. That is where
that makes sense.
That's where we started.
Yep.
He got out of the hyperbaric chamber and Dr. Tuturi said, "You have to meet Tony." And I was scared because I was like, why? You know, like, what does he need? And he's like, "No, he doesn't need anything. You just need to meet him." And I'm like, oh, okay. Because he told me, he's like, he does explosives. And I'm like, well, I got to be friends with him. I don't want him to blow me up. Like, I don't, you know. I was very trepidatious. Let me just put it that way. And then he gets out of the chamber and he's like, "Hey, how you doing? What's going on?" And I'm like, "Oh, he's cool. I love you. Okay, we're good." But it was just like that first, like, why? What do I need to do?
Well, you never know with Joe.
Never.
You never know who he's going to introduce you to, and
or what they need.
Right? Fair. That's fair. So I spent 12 years, and I got out in 2011. I think I finished my Navy stuff, and
He doesn't know because he's still serving. Let me just put it.
well, it all does kind of blend together. I mean, because I went straight out of uniform into civil service, working for the Navy on test ranges, blowing stuff up and analyzing what happens.
And now he works at an Air Force base. So
I work for an Air Force base. So fast forward from that, so Iraq was ugly because we lost a lot of people. I lost two very good friends over there. One of them IEDs for both of them, improvised explosive devices. One of them right in front of me. So Russell, very good friend of mine, was a team leader at the time. He and I were running together, and he walked up on one, and it got kicked off, and I got shot in the meantime. So that's, it took me a long time to deal with that. I didn't go to the VA initially. I didn't try to go get treatment because I said I was fine. Well, yeah, that doesn't go well.
You were fine because you got up and went to work every day, but that doesn't mean what is the I think Marsack, I don't know if you know him, but we did a podcast with him and he was talking about the definition of fine.
Freaked out, insecure, neurotic.
I did.
Got it.
Say that again, Tony.
Freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional.
Okay, well, he said a different F word. But I like yours.
Tony's more PC. He's a little more PC than most.
It doesn't exactly mean the same idea, but similar. But I do like Tony's better, actually.
Freaked out,
yeah.
Instead of
because when somebody's in their head, they are freaking out. Or they are freaking out.
The anxiety, the not knowing what.
We deal with a lot of people trying to learn to dive that way too. They get too much in their head, and that trauma, the trauma-informed, diving instruction that we do, get them out of their head, get them in the water, and start focusing on something completely different than they've ever experienced. That's how we crack that nut on a lot of people.
Well, we'll get into that because I'm very excited because a lot of people take people diving. And even when you took me diving, there was a group, and what they do is they just generate revenue, right? They're not really concerned with the individualness of the person. They're not invested. There's no relationship built. They take 10 people diving, and if one person spazzes out, go sit on the dock, and they're just left there. I mean, that was our experience too, because when he took me diving, there was actually a dude that I went and talked to because he's sitting up there by himself. It was horrible. I thought that was terrible. So anyway, we'll go into that. But so you did 12 years and then you contracted with the Navy and then you work for the Air Force now, kind of Special Operations Command. SOCOM?
Yep.
But you can't tell us what you do, so we'll move forward.
Let's just say I'm a program manager. I manage people contracts.
Sure you do. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if one of my friends goes missing, Tony knows nothing about it.
Exactly.
Hey, divers know where to hide the body. I'm just saying.
Okay. And John's supposed to teach me how to dive. I don't want to know this right before I do this.
Oh no. It's blowing bubbles. It is the most peaceful you will ever be.
It is shutting your brain off so that you can blow into, because your brain does not understand I'm in water. So my brain knows I need to hold my breath, but I have this oxygen blowing into my face. There's this serious dichotomy with diving.
You should know.
Oh my God, I suck. But I'm going to try again. I do. I'm terrible. I freaked out. It's not totally,
that doesn't mean you suck. That just means you just need to keep trying.
Well, I had a flashback in the middle of trying to take off my mask. So Tony's like holding my hand and, he's so sensitive and so caring and so respectful of what I was going through. Like it was and I'm like, you have to do this with everyone. Like, because everybody, what we've seen, when they take these dive groups out, and I've been on cruises and I've seen the excursions where they just take the masses, get the money, and be on their way. They don't really care that you paid $180 to get dive certified and you emotionally need a moment. They don't care. And that's the biggest problem that I have with a lot of dive teams. But Tony can talk more about that because he's a specialist and I'm not.
Well, I mean, it's funny because I teach for several dive companies, dive shops here in the Tampa area. And I have always had a knack for people with disabilities.
Right.
I got certified real young to teach handicapped. And I love it because they are, especially ADD kids, ADHD, kids on the spectrum, adults on the spectrum.
Right.
They have one singular focus, and you point them in a direction, and they're going to go.
Right.
And they're going to totally 100% trust you. And you have to make sure that you're taking care of them because they don't know what all the rest of us know, logic and breathing underwater and, not holding your breath. But I just found over the years that I really gravitated toward those kind of people. And my wife, God bless her, Mel, she does underwater photography.
Oh, she's a fantastic person. I love her. She's one of my favorite humans on the planet. Like Mel is amazing.
She is very awesome. Best part of my life. And she never dove before she and I got together. And she got down there and she's breathing. And now she can't get enough of it. She loves wrecks. She loves the life underwater. But it's a piece that, and it's kind of like I was telling you, Dorothy, it's a piece that surpasses anything you've ever experienced. Because if you sit down there and you breathe really slow and you just listen, you literally can't hear anything but your own bubbles. And you're watching whether it's sharks or fish or crabs or eels or seahorses, whatever it is that you want to go look for. It's just you and them. And they don't, my dog.
Puppies.
Forgive me. The animals they treat you like another animal and you're just blowing bubbles. And and you see things that you would never be able to see anywhere else in the world. And I want to share that with everybody.
What is the strangest experience you've had diving?
Okay.
I've never asked him this, by the way.
That's true. I've actually dove all over the world. It's crazy. I do not like diving where it's cold. I've done it. Cold, dark.
He's not a big fan of the ice bath.
Nope, not a big fan. Not a big fan. If I have
trying to get him to do it at the TBI clinic, he's like, no, I did that in work. I'm good.
I enjoy it.
It's refreshing. I'll say that. But yeah, I mean, if I have to wear a dry suit or wear something thicker than a 5 mil, I'm not diving there. That's why I live in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
But probably the most unusual place was off the coast of Italy, Greece, Crete, that area.
Okay.
Because they have shipwrecks down there that aren't hundreds of years old; they're thousands of years old.
Wow.
It is insane, the preservation, and it's kind of chilly most of the time, but the beauty is unmatched. It's insane. It is the most beautiful that I've ever seen. Mel likes to tell the story. Her favorite story is the nurse sharks, who are puppies of the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And we were diving actually here in the Gulf, and there was a little nurse shark. He probably wasn't 6 feet long. He's probably a young guy. And he started following us around. And of course, this is the first time Mel's seen sharks in the water. And she's like, hey, shark. I'm like, yeah, we're good. It's all good.
All the hand signals. I love it. And they do. They're underwater and they communicate with each other. And you're just looking at them like, what are you saying? I don't speak sign language and underwater. True. Sign language. That's not a thing for me. So
I'm fidgeting my wetsuit.
There you go. You can't yell at me because you gotta breathe. So
we can flip you off.
That's fair. That happens.
International hand signals.
This little nurse shark just decided he wanted to be my buddy, and he would swim up next to me and nudge me, and I'd reach back and pet him. Not that I'm telling anybody to touch wildlife. Don't do that. But he would nudge me until I'd scratch his nose, and then he'd swim off, and a minute or two later, he would be right here. And Mel's got some amazing pictures of this guy just right here. He'd just swim up, and he's like, hey, what you doing? What's up? So we were down there about an hour and a half, and he did not leave me more than 10 minutes the whole hour and a half.
Aww.
It was funny. I've since been back to that same place trying to find him and have never seen him again. So I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? He might have migrated or something. That's awesome.
So the biggest thing we do on with those special people that we help, that's where the idea for Bubbles came from.
Okay.
My family got tore up during multiple deployments. Mel's family, her parents first, and then her nuclear family, husband, and they split up just because of the constant operational tempo and being deployed all the time, and it was really good work, but it was scary stuff. Right. You can't get blown up without having some bad memories. And what we saw over there, people should never have to deal with.
Right.
So
it changes you when you return, for sure.
It does. And you don't really know the extent of that change until years later when you're trying to maintain a relationship with your wife and kids. And
Well, people don't understand that when you're deployed, like you have your whole entire, thought process, experience, and mindset is one way, and then you deploy to a third world country, and you only have to you survive on so little for an extended period of time. We got 6 month, 8 month, or 12-month, 18-month deployments, and then you come back, and it's assumed that you are the same person you were before you had to adjust your entire life. And I don't know anybody who's never been changed by a deployment. Like everyone I've ever met has.
That's fair. It's true. And depending on where you were stationed or what you had to do, I mean, we, unfortunately, a lot of EOD guys had to see and do really ugly stuff because we were attached to the front line with, be it special operations, NSW, Army SF, MARSOC Raiders, doesn't matter. Pick your
right. But those are all things you're ordered to do that may very well be what we describe as moral injury, survivor's guilt. That's not, it's like PTS adjacent. They're not in the DSM-5 and they don't have their own lovely codes, but at the same time, they have very overlapping symptoms to PTS. And, the big one with moral injury, and it's one of the things I'm presenting on next week, by the way, Dorothy, with Mr. Norman, is moral injury and how to treat it, because it is different than PTS, post-traumatic stress. But I don't think people break it down and realize it's different. Because like ordering someone to do something that's against their core beliefs, but because you don't want to go to jail, you need to execute this order. That's very complex. And that's something that you have to live with. Those drones get sent out and then people drop bombs on areas that may or may not have individuals in them. I mean, they do their due diligence to do recon, but there's sometimes that like, there's nothing you can do, right? So not that you can talk about it. I know it's all classified, but
there's a lot of that. It's fair. I mean, there's a lot of that, and it doesn't matter whether you're boots on the ground, disarming a booby trap before your team goes in to take a house or a compound, or you're sitting in a Connex somewhere watching missiles that you're firing off a drone, and watching them hit buildings,
and watching people on fire afterwards is very traumatizing. I worked with some students at a school shooting, and there was a video around of one of the classmates that were hit, and the video is what caused them the trauma. They weren't even in that building, so I don't think people understand the level of symptoms that come with just viewing things, being exposed to things, not necessarily being involved.
And it's different than, a lot of kids these days play those role-playing games and video games that they're shooting, shoot move, blowing people up. And but it's different.
Fortnite, Call of Duty, Halo. Yeah.
Right.
Dungeons & Dragons.
Yes.
But it's different when you physically know there's a real person on the other end of that camera.
Right.
Or the other end of that scope.
Right.
And you have to pull the trigger, whether you're 1,000 miles away or you're 100 feet away. Doesn't matter. You still have to pull the trigger.
Right. It's very heavy. So you focused since you started working with individuals with, intellectual disabilities, handicaps, in the individuals that are diagnosed with autism, like you created Bubbles. How?
So we decided, well, the thought was a long time ago. Hey, how do I create an agency or an organization that can keep soldiers, airmen, sailors, whatever it be, keep veterans with their families. How do we not break that family bond? And over the years, it kind of got refined down to something, okay, we're going to do something for the whole family, the whole nuclear family. Nobody's doing this, or very few people. In the dive community, there are tons, and I love them to death, but there are tons of nonprofits out there that take the veterans, teach them to dive, take them and give them another skill, diving, working underwater, whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
But there are no, that I know of, or that I've been able to find, any organizations that are taking the veteran and their whole family and exposing them together to a diving experience. Now, this does a couple of things. So diving's not natural, just like Janelle was talking about a minute ago.
It's true.
It's not something you do automatically.
Right.
So you can't get in your own head because you're focused on breathing and you're focused on staying under the water and you're focused on everything around you. You can't focus on trauma and you can't focus on past experiences. You're literally in the zone right there for the most part. I mean, there's exceptions here and there, but for the most part, you are outside of your element and it's brand new. Well, you put the kids and the parents all together in this out of comfort zone area, and they're depending on each other. They're working together. They're experiencing things, exciting things, fun things, beautiful things together. And that's where Bubbles started. Let's figure out a way to take an entire family, put them together, put them in the water, and either teach them to dive, or if they don't want to get certified, they just want to try it out. Oh, that's cool. Nice trick.
Right? She's fancy.
If they don't want to get certified, they just want to try it out. You get 3 days of diving, guided dives with instructors that just are there to help you see beautiful stuff. We do rivers, we do caverns, we do the Gulf, open ocean, and they get to experience all this together. And at the end of the day, if they get certified, they have now a hobby that they can do as a family all together. If the kids, God bless them, they can't do anything but snorkel because they're not old enough, then they can snorkel while the rest of the family is right under them diving.
That's awesome.
We keep them all together, and this gives them that shared experience, starting to build positive memories. And the people that have come through the program come back and say, Tony, this changed our entire family. This changed our entire life. It gave us something to do together.
Yeah. In a day and age where we're so disconnected by electronics, like this is an amazing, endorphin, dopamine, serotonin level type, experience where they can all come together. And it's not just, hey, let's shuttle 9 people through this training course, be on our way. Tony won't do it. He just refuses. I mean, he could make a lot of money and he could buy himself a new little truck, and he could generate all kinds of for-profit money, and he's choosing not to. And I think that's pretty noble.
I just don't want, I want to make sure everybody has their own opportunity and time to do something different. And whatever that looks like, whether it's a kid that can't get out of their own computer, can't get out of their own telephone. And I'm sorry, you can't really take your telephone in the water. I mean, you could, but it wouldn't work long. My favorite part, and I could teach a lot of different levels of scuba diving, cave, technical, whatever. My favorite class to teach is the first one, the open water, because that's where you develop really great habits as a diver. That's where you see, whether it's an adult or a kid, doesn't matter. That's where you see that light bulb come on in their face when they drop down and they realize, I'm breathing with fish.
Yeah. It is epic. And I will tell you, when you squeeze that little button on your shoulder and you start to sink, that is the most, I don't know, adrenaline racing type. And I used to be a professional drag racer. So like breathing underwater is pretty epic. Just saying. But so Tony and I had a conversation. What happened last year is I was 10 feet under. I took my regulator out of my mouth. I was trying to get my certification because, I want to overachieve. Hello, doctorate, another, right? So anyway, threw my regulator over my shoulder, tucked my shoulder, grabbed the regulator, put it back in my mouth, blew the water into the tank thingy. I don't know what it's called. And then I went to take off my mask, closed my eyes, and I had a flashback to when I was 9 years old. I was on a canoe trip in Sabo River. I know you know where that's at because you live on the other side of the water, Dorothy. So you know where the Sabo, I think, something like that. Anyway, we were canoeing, and a canoe had flipped over because we hit rapid tides or whatever. And, my mother was chasing suntan lotion. And about 2 minutes later, I was trapped, and I had about this much air. Like, I was trapped. My feet were, for whatever reason, my lanky feet were tucked underneath the part of the canoe where you sit. And I was trapped upside down. And I had a flashback to that when I took off the mask and I closed my eyes, because the Asaba River is all brown, right? You can't see. So when I closed my eyes underwater, that's exactly where I went. So I shot straight up, and he's like, he didn't go, "What's wrong? You need to get out." Like he did not respond in the way I anticipated. So when he's like, "It's okay. Do you need a break?" And I'm like, "Why are you calm?" So he could share with you that part of the experience and why we started the trauma-informed diving.
Well, it's giving them, and I don't get riled up about much of anything.
Ever. It's awesome.
It's when you're sitting on top of a explosive device and you have to pick a wire. It's not really how it works.
Me freaking out and swimming to the top is no big deal.
It's you don't get nervous about stuff anymore. But it's one of those things that if I, as an instructor, react to a student that is having trouble, that student is going to feed off of my reaction. And the worst thing you can possibly do is get as animated as they get.
Yes.
And I've had students jump to the top and take their mask off and throw it and say they were done.
Mm-hmm.
And
I didn't do that. I was close.
She didn't do that.
I was close.
And I'll sit at the bottom until I see they're calm, and then I'll come up. Hey.
Yep.
Need a break? Can we talk through this?
Yep.
What are you thinking? What are you feeling? Because I don't know what trauma or what experiences that person has had. I don't need to know. They don't have to tell me. What I want them to do is talk to me about what they're thinking and tell me what they want to do. Because if I find out how they want to work, then I can do that. I can do it their way, because there's 100 different ways to do everything we do in the water. But I have to figure out what works for them and what puts them at ease and relaxes them.
And the level of fear I had, he held my hand. I sunk. I came back up, I sunk, I came back up like as many times as I needed. And he was like, just do what you want to do. I will follow you. And I'm like, what? Like, that was amazing to me because I'm so used to people not having patience, so that was just, I don't know, changed my whole perception. And we're going back out in July. We're going to get another veteran certified with us, and he'll probably hold me down to the bottom, but neither here nor there. I'm going to get this done. So,
but it's the same way with, what you do, and God bless you. You've got patience for days. But you talk through things, and you talk to the people.
Well, you don't go, what happened? Why are you, and that's the thing. I think the people, and I'm not knocking the people who do group dive certifications like you do, but at the same time, if I'm paying $180 and I can't seem to get over my anxiety, like, you should have some support there. That's not fair to me. Because, and especially my situation, I love the water. I had no idea, probably because I've had so much happen to me in my life with regard to trauma. I forgot that happened until I was 10 feet down.
Yep.
And I think that happens to a lot of people. They suppress stuff like that until those events come right in your face, And I think the trauma-informed diving is very specific to his organization, because you are having a group of family, but you're also having, a mom or a dad who's a veteran who has to keep on a bold face for their kids, and they have to be brave. But at the same time, they may very well be struggling with their own stuff. But the reason they push through is because the kids are there.
Yeah, that's part of it. Definitely part of it. But you can see that, and you recognize those cues, and later you're going to pull them aside, and you're going to say, hey, talk me through this. Talk about how you were feeling without the kids around, and that's how we figure out the best way for them to learn and the best way for them to overcome those fears.
Like, don't stand behind me. Don't touch my shoulder. Don't do this. Don't do that. Like, they will let you know exactly what they need. And Tony gives you the space to communicate that with him. So he never went behind me. He was face to face with me every second we were in the water, which I thought was amazing, because not everybody's going to take the time to do that. So I was excited to learn that he has a very specific, individualized, agenda with regard to, getting the families together and creating that experience, because those kids will always remember that. They could be 40 years old and go, yeah, I went diving with my dad.
Yep. And that's exactly the experience we want them to have.
So why are you on the podcast today, sir, of all days? Because I could have had you on like last month.
So this weekend, this weekend is our first big fundraiser for Bubbles. I do not understand how to raise money. I've been very blessed with a PhD intern student that has done this before, and Katie deserves all the credit. But we have a silent auction that is live now. There are links on our website, and we are auctioning off a bunch of stuff: trips, gift cards. I mean, it's crazy the amount of donations that these companies have provided. Tickets.
Because what you're doing is totally cool and unique, and it's not, this isn't. Well, I don't think people understand that. A lot of nonprofit organizations, like, they make nothing. People don't understand. Like, they get a donation and they say, "Oh, you got $1,000 donation." Well, that's great. That pays for two people.
Well,
it's about $550 to get somebody dive certified, because you have to pay for this. You have to pay to go in the water. You have to pay the online fee to get the certification. online. So, I mean, in that is the majority of it. Not to
It's
mention like filling the tank and using the equipment. Somebody's going to wash your wetsuit. It's a thing,
it's it's about $5,000 per family, and our goal has always been 6 families a year. Any more than that, and we overwhelm our counselors, we
Mhm.
overwhelm our instructors. But it's about 5 or 6,000 per family between the dives, the students, the instruction, the boats, the dive fees, whatever, all that stuff, airfare, hotels.
Right.
But right now we are very blessed that 100% of the money we raise goes to the veteran families. All of our administrative cost is covered by other people, whether it be the instructors volunteer. We have
Your therapist volunteer.
Therapists volunteer. We've got a Marriott hotel right here in Tampa up, I can't remember Dale Mabry. And they comp 2 rooms for every family that comes through. So the kids have a room and the parents have a room.
And then we just have to worry about sponsorship for food. See, that's the other thing. Like if we could start working on that, like some of these local, I mean, Dale Mabry is a huge highway. So I'm speaking out to some of the people like Smoky Bones and, some of those other, like they will sponsor some of the food, right, for those families. So that's something that lovely Kitty can look into. She's brilliant. She really is. She's so sweet.
And like I said a minute ago, I had no idea how to do this. Had no idea how to raise money.
No, Tony dives. That's what Tony does.
Put me in the water. I'm great. But these companies, reaching out to them, they have overwhelmed us with generous donations of gifts and tickets to attractions here in Tampa and all over Florida. And they don't want anything. They're not even taking the write-off. I mean, we're a 501c3. They just want to help. And we have been overwhelmed with the gracious donations of all the companies.
Yeah, even Semper Modus is giving away some free sessions to therapy and some other stuff, because it's pretty cool that, if you believe in what somebody's doing, it's easy to say yes, but I want everybody there's a Legion in Tampa where it's going to be at. It's from 3 to 7 on Saturday, which that Legion is the one on the water, right?
It is the American Legion, Post 138. It is down here off of the bottom end of West Shore. And they've got some prime real estate. I don't know how long they've had it, but they've had it for a minute.
They sure do.
But it is right on the water. It's beautiful. And we are doing some live raffles while we're there. And then we've got the silent auction and people bidding on trips and gift cards and tons of stuff. But yeah, this is our first big one. We were blessed by one of the dive shops here locally and had a small fundraiser earlier this year that allowed us to do our first family for this year.
Yeah, and they were awesome.
Memorial Day weekend.
They were both veterans, which was pretty cool. The 3 kids are, I don't think they had any electronics at all, did they?
No, not at all.
Pretty cool.
The whole time they were in the water and they were in it. It was great. Busy weekend, Memorial Day weekend. I don't know that I'll try that one again, but but it was fun for them. So awesome. It's come out and support us. Absolutely.
So bubblesforvets.org. It's you can also apply there.
Yes. So if you are a veteran and you think our services would help your family, I am reminded of a family last year. and the mother and father had separated already.
Mhm.
And I had to call the spouse and say, hey, just show up.
Right.
You just show up for the kids. I won't even put you in the same room with your spouse.
Mhm.
Just show up. And at the end of the day, at the end of the weekend, they actually are probably going to stay together.
Wow.
Wow.
It was probably, and barring any, any weird stuff, but they actually said to me, they were laughing and joking in the same room during the same dive on the same boat and having a blast like they haven't done in years. And
Sounds like that's what they needed.
if I save one family, that's a success.
Yeah.
It's a win. It's a win.
Absolutely. That's awesome. I love that.
So what branch was that again? So I can put it that in the show notes.
I'm sorry. Say it again. You did.
It was Army, Navy, both.
No, what branch? Like what Legion branch?
Oh,
that this event's at.
American Legion, off of West Shore. It's post 138. If you Google it, it comes up. It's right on the water.
All right.
It is beautiful. And they have karaoke outside, which is amazing.
And one of the games that
Nobody knows I know that too.
we'll be doing some bingo, and I think probably toward the end of the evening there will be karaoke. So there might be some drinking involved.
Well, I mean, the Legion is where you drink. It's the cheapest, right?
It is.
Bring your Legion card. Yes.
But it's open for anybody for that night,
Yep.
3 to 7. Anybody that wants to come. You don't have to be a member.
And the online, if they can't make it because they live in Miami, Dr. Corvea, she can find it on the website, right?
She can.
She's asked me 3 days in a row. I'm like, yes, honey.
It is live now.
Okay.
Katie actually turned it on this morning.
Awesome. Okay. Very cool. So, Dorothy, ask him some questions because you have some.
Well, my mind's just like circulating. So did I hear right that you are still civilian side of the military, and you're doing Bubbles for Vets is your charity?
I am. I have 4 or 5 more years, and then I'll have 30 with the government.
Oh my gosh.
Hopefully, I know I'm old. I told you in the beginning I'm old. I will hopefully Bubbles will be self-sufficient in the next 4 or 5 years, and then I will retire and do 100% Bubbles. That'll be my whole job.
So that'd be awesome.
So I was really excited to go diving when we had John on, and now some of the things you're bringing up, I have anxiety. Like my chest is heavy just thinking about that shark that's right there. I'm like, I would shit my pants.
But there's no sharks in the springs. Okay, so
No
like
sharks.
if you take you to Key West, it'd be a different story. But if we take you to freshwater and springs, like you'll see the sea cows, but you won't see any sharks. And the sea cows are just like, yo, what's up?
They're like
they don't
potatoes. They're like underwater potatoes.
Yes. With big eyes.
Okay.
I
love the
went
water. The
kayaking
water's
with
not the
Molly.
problem.
I went kayaking with Molly in Crystal River about 3 years ago, and there was a manatee that kind of floats up next to the kayak, and it's one big eye, and it just kind of hangs out and looks at you like, oh, hi. And then it goes away. So, like, there's nothing scary about the springs.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I will take your word.
Okay.
Now, Key West, you can see for miles, and it's clear as day, but they have sharks. Just saying.
When you're under the water, they think you're another shark, honestly.
Yeah.
Because you're 5
we
or 6
believe
feet
you.
long. It's true. Hey, I've been diving for 30 years. I've never been bit.
Well, that's because you're you, though. I would be like splashing around and I would have a Jaws situation. I know me. Like, that's, no. Not the same. We are not the same.
That's what Brittany Hamilton said as she was surfing, and then she lost count. So, hello.
Well, he does look like a seal when you're surfing. And coming from California, both my older girls were California beach surfers. They just stereotypical, but yeah, if you're on the surface and you're surfing, you look like a seal.
Well, and I honestly, if you go diving with Tony, I would say mirror his behavior and you'll never be bit, because he is very mindful and he's very intentional about what he does with his body underwater. So, but I'm just saying, like in my head, if I saw a shark for the first time, at least, I would probably panic a little bit and splash all over. And they'd be like, yummy seal, right? My luck. Oh yeah. So, yeah, I think it's just practice.
Well, when you said sitting at the bottom, I had this visualization of sitting at the bottom and you're just doing like your yoga pose,
right?
As we're down there, right? And then these bubbles floating everywhere.
There's photos of him doing that. I assure you, I've seen him.
I would love to do that.
There's something called surface air consumption, SAC. A lot of dive computers figure how much air you're breathing underwater as compared to what you would be breathing on the surface. And that my goal is always to have a single digit, not 2 digits, but a single digit. That to me, and I can do it as long as I'm not teaching. If I'm just diving, Mel and I are diving a wreck or whatever.
Right.
Unless I'm chasing her because she dove off the side of the shipwreck chasing a fish.
Yeah.
And our bottom was supposed to be 100 and she ends up at 130 because, she's off chase. And I turn around and I'm like, where'd she go? And she's off the side chasing a fish. But normally.
I see. Yeah, totally makes sense.
You can see her doing it, right?
Mm-hmm. I saw her doing it when you were teaching me. You're very focused on me, and she's like, do. Hey, there's a turtle. All right. So how did you meet Dr. Joe? I mean, I know the story, but Dorothy doesn't.
Joe and I met each other the first time out west at Coronado when he was stationed in San Diego. He was a L&O deep water, did a lot of research diving for the Navy. He is responsible for his big book, the Encyclopedia, the Tao of Scuba Diving.
It's a big book.
It is. He and Tom Mount wrote that book together, and they have pretty much pioneered underwater diving and treatment. He's doing hyperbaric medicine now. So a few years later, he gets transferred to SOCOM, Special Operations Command here in Tampa. And about 6 or 8 years later, I get a call from a buddy of mine that was a Navy guy and said, hey, we got some stuff down here, some projects that we need test engineers to do. And I was like, yeah, well, sign me up. My girls were already in Winter Haven with DX. And so I was like, yeah, I was in DC. I was at GS-14 running a big missile program. And I was like, yep, I'm tired of DC. I'm coming to Tampa.
Traffic will kill you. DC.
I know, right? Lo and behold, who do I run into but Joe Dituri? And he was in the process of getting ready to get out. And he retired from the Navy as a commander and grew his hair out. It is some serious hair.
We've had him on the shelf.
Good.
So, yeah.
You've seen it. So he and I have kept in touch, and one of my oldest and dearest friends. He's an amazing person, and helps out whenever he can. He's busy, but he helps us out anytime he can.
Well, after all those explosives, so Dr. Joe does is he'll think of all the guys that he's like, ooh, he was EOD. He needs to go through hyperbaric. So, and USF was doing the first initial
Yep.
grant funded program to actually see if these next steps, what Joe is doing now, would come to fruition. And Tony was a big part of that. So he got the opportunity to get those 40 treatment sessions. So you can tell him a little bit about being in the tube and what that's like.
It's funny because it's a big glass tube. You can see everybody on the outside.
You get to watch Netflix.
You do. Awesome. So when it started, there was no TVs there, and people would go into the tube, and your brain, if it's not occupied, starts going to the claustrophobia. I can't get out, and you're pecking on the glass. So they put the
I'd make Joe tell me stories. I'd be like, pick it up, let's go, tell me stories.
Yeah. So they put the TVs in so that and they pipe the sound into the tube so that you're occupied, and then you go through a EEG. You'll have to help me with the
the neurofeedback.
There you go, neurofeedback, and then the ice bath. And it all plays together in one process to unprogram your head that you really can do this. And the pressurization of the oxygen, it literally heals inside your body things that have hurt and injuries and scar tissue. It's insane the amount of freedom that I got. And keep in mind, my last concussion was 2005. So you're talking 16, 18 years, almost 20 years later, and I'm doing this program and I'm thinking more clearly. My joints don't hurt. I'm got range of motion that is beyond what I've had in 15 years. So this stuff really works. And I was very, very happy, very blessed to be able to do that pilot program. And I'm so glad that USF sponsored it, and they've got some great people that are working it now, and I think it's amazing what they are able to do.
Yeah, he got 2 big time grants, so he'll be able to help. And they got 6 tubes, and it'll be phenomenal what he's going to be able to do. I didn't get in the tube because I was like, oh, I don't want to take gas money out of Joe's wallet. I just felt weird about it, right? But I may, because USF is right down the road from me, I may seriously consider being one of their humans.
There you go.
Yeah. So Dorothy's got questions.
Yes. What would you say motivates you, Tony?
I think the experience, being able to give the experience that I've had in the water to other people that would never be able to do it. Seeing the connection between the parents and the kids like they haven't seen in so many years. That giggle, the laugh, the, hey, did you see that fish? Did you see that turtle? The kid banging on the mom or the dad's shoulder and pointing underwater at a fish. That drives me. That focuses me, and I'm like, that's why we do this.
He helps find the joy where otherwise it would not be found.
Yes. And I don't need,
because that was my experience. Even though I had a flashback and all of that, there was serious joy of looking up and seeing that Victor, the turtle, like just swimming over me, and like 900 fish going by me, and they were like silver. It's just there's nothing that. I mean, you see pictures, you see videos, you have it on screensaver, right? But like being there and that fish just brushing the side of your face as they swim, there's nothing that equates to that. Nothing.
Yep.
And why I want to go again.
And every time, from the very beginning, when I thought about being an instructor, the first class I ever taught, I had two little boys, 13 and 11, and they were going through the first time with their dad. When they dropped down the first time in the swimming pool, and just oh my God, their eyes were that big around, and they're like, I'm doing this. I was hooked, and I just want to be able to share that with as many people as I can. And if I can help one family stay together, or reconnect with their hero, it's worth it. It's worth it for me every day.
Love that. So what's one thing that no one else knows about you?
He's pretty open book, so this is kind of funny.
I am. Most people do not know I am scared to death of spiders.
So's my husband.
I can swim with sharks. I can do zero visibility.
He sees a spider, he gets up on a chair. It's hilarious.
Yep. I disarm a bomb. I'm not going near a spider. It's not going to happen. My wife Mel thinks it's really funny. You can disarm a nuke, but you can't kill a spider. I'm like, no, those things jump. No.
Because Mel's just like, clunk, done. Like she's good with it.
I am getting a vision of him trying to disarm a bomb when a spider comes up. I would be like,
well, that's why it's underwater. He doesn't disarm bombs on land. Not a problem.
Mission
not accomplished.
Not accomplished. I'm trying to think of that word in the movies they use, but I can't remember. Aborted mission or something like that.
Yeah, abort. Yes, abort.
Sorry.
Abort.
My brain goes all kinds of places. It's an interesting place to be.
It's late for her too, because she gets up at 0:30. So,
oof.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how long the podcast is supposed to be, but we've been on here for an hour. Hey, we're all getting silly.
Well,
I'm always silly though.
It depends. Dr. J can go for hours. It depends on the guest.
I don't know if you should advertise that, but yes. No, I'm just kidding.
Taking resumes and references.
Wow.
Send them to GramDorothy408@gmail.com.
I was being funny. Seriously. So, what's your last question there, Miss Dorothy?
Well, seriously, I really had nothing. I just enjoyed. I think I really wanted to know what a whack-a-mole was, though, because that really intrigued me.
Well, in what context? What are you talking about whack-a-mole for? Like, where did you get that from?
Well, in the context, in his bio, it says playing the biggest game of whack-a-mole ever imagined, when he was in service.
Okay.
So what do you mean by that?
Hear this story.
So when we were out chasing bad guys, wherever, just, name a place, you would go over here to this location and you'd round up a cell and take care of them, whatever you do with them. And then you take care of them here. And then all of a sudden, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, there's another cell that pops up here and you take care of that one. And then all of a sudden, a couple weeks later, there's another cell that pops up here. So it was amazingly frustrating to see the number of people involved with doing bad stuff that kept showing up. And no matter what we did, no matter how many of them we got a hold of, there was always somebody else. And
So this is a country that they played whack-a-mole in.
Yes.
Not just like hitting the hammer on the mole and knocking it down and another one pops. I like he's talking on a massive scale.
Big scale.
Gotcha.
Big scale.
Got it.
And it's never going to stop. I mean, you know, all politics aside, there's always going to be bad. No matter what we do, no matter how we twist it, good, bad, ugly, there's always going to be people that want to do harm to other people.
Yes.
And
Unfortunately.
and God bless the guys and girls that are in the military now. It's a whole different ballgame.
What would you say to somebody who's considering going in today?
I would say that you need to think about what's being asked of you. Because at the end of the day, and I don't know who said it, but I've used it many times. At the end of the day, you are going to write a blank check to the United States up to and including your life.
Correct.
And that blank check is something that may or may not ever get cashed.
Right.
Believe me, I thought mine was going to get cashed several times.
Well, and I think when you and I went in, it was a different military.
It was.
Dr. Joe and I and you, and we've all talked about this.
Yes.
Right. So, and there's a lot of people that are transitioning now that are actually getting the mental health that they need, the therapy they need. And some of my clients talk about that the transition that the military has taken, the shift that has happened since, when they went in versus today's military, because they are different things. 9/11 changed everything. And I don't think
we went from shorts and ball caps and t-shirts to bomb suits in a different country. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. This just got real. I want to go back to playing softball.
Right.
And did you say that your job was to defuse the bombs underwater?
Most of the time it was above water. Actually, all of them, believe it or not, 136 of them, all.
But you trained to disconnect things underwater as well.
Yes.
He can do both.
He
can't do it jumping out of an airplane, which is why we didn't understand why he had to do that.
I didn't either, but apparently that was the only way to get where we needed to go, was jump out of a perfectly good airplane. I'm like, to this day, every jump master that had to deal with me hated it. Tony, if you don't get off my effing airplane, I'm going to shoot you myself. Hey, wait, I can just go back with you. I'm good. I'll just go land, just put it down. I'll get off. Not a problem. I've been this, joking person.
Yes, he's been this way his whole life. That's for sure. So I do want well, lastly, before, and I do want you to stay on a little bit after we are done being live. That's Dorothy speak. I don't know. The media stuff is not my forte. I want you to talk a little bit more about the idea behind trauma-informed diving, because that is a big part of your organization and what that means. Because we've touched on it, but we haven't really talked about it.
So the idea is meeting the person where they are, regardless of their experiences, regardless of their trauma. We put them in the water and we meet them where they are. We take it very slow. We take it step by step. And if the only thing they can do right now is stick their head in the water and breathe, I'm good with that. Yeah, that's her. I'm good with that. But
I'm going to keep coming till I'm done. I want that certificate.
It's having the patience and devoting the time to the individual that they need, not on your schedule. And I tell my students all the time, I got all day.
Mm-hmm.
I breathe really slow underwater. I got all day, and I got plenty of air for you. So if it takes all day, we're there. But it's being engaged with that student and being connected with that student so that they understand that they're the most important thing in my world right then.
Right.
And that's what they need.
His
So
students are not numbers by any
No.
means. He can tell you everything you want to know about somebody. He establishes a relationship before they even walk into their dive suit. It's pretty phenomenal.
And it's all about them, and that's what they need, you know. And I don't need to know about your trauma. I don't need to know anything you don't want to tell me.
Right.
I just want to meet you where you are.
Well, what is really cool is Tony on another level, this trauma-informed diving, he's actually coined so he can teach this to other people who take people diving.
Yes.
Now, how awesome is that? So that's a whole nother echelon and another level where he teaches people how to be trauma-informed, how to pay attention to certain signs, how to be aware of the student and where they're at. You know, and I think a lot of that stems from you working with individuals with sensitivities and with disabilities, because that does create a like an area of patience that you wouldn't normally have if you just worked at a dive shop and took out a bunch of people who were visiting Tampa.
So disability doesn't mean limitation.
True.
One of the things we do with the vets, the disabled vets, is it doesn't matter if they're missing limbs. It doesn't matter if they have cognitive limitations. In the water, you may be disabled, but you're not limited. And
Right.
we figure out how to communicate and how to adapt to your disability so that you're not limited. There is nobody on the planet, I don't care what your disability is, I don't care what your handicap is, there is nobody on the planet we can't teach to dive.
Isn't that amazing?
If I can teach a 70-year-old quadriplegic and his son to do signals underwater to dive, anybody can do it.
That's awesome.
I feel a challenge in that. I feel a challenge.
Anybody that's willing, let's put it that way, because if you're not willing to dive, you're not going to be very successful.
That's fair.
Well, that is true.
You have to want to do it.
Yes, absolutely. This is awesome.
I
Anything
love
else you want to add? Because sometimes when we do podcasts, and I do presentations of podcasts and stuff all the time, and I'm like, I should have said this. Is there anything that you would want to say at the end of this?
Me?
Yes, sir.
I thank you. I'm very blessed, and I really appreciate the opportunity to come on and just talk about what we do and what we are trying to do for as many families as possible.
And Saturday is going to be a huge day. We're going to raise all kinds of money. And this goes on the Roku channel too. So people can donate at bubblesforvets.org, and they could sponsor some families and get some kudos, because you're more than happy to share, who sponsored who if they need to, they're like, well, Verizon sponsored a family. All right, Verizon, we will give you kudos, whatever it takes, right?
Yep. You'll get an icon on the website. You'll get shout outs in social media. Whatever you want to get out of it, you'll get it.
I love it.
Love it, love it, love it. All right, guys. Like they said, this weekend, Saturday, go to the American Legion, Post 138 in Tampa on West Shore, and go meet Tony. If nothing else, go donate some money. Don't go buy something. Go go to their silent auction. And Tony, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you. Now that I know what a whack-a-mole is, now I can sleep tonight. And I'll have visions of sharks.
From
and
Canada, never saw the show. See what happens.
Never know.
I love picking on Dorothy about being from Canada.
Yes, she does. But that's okay. I love her. She's like my older sister that bugs the shit out of me.
Pretty much.
That I never had.
Poke. That's
she
me.
Pokes the bear. She pokes the bear.
She pokes back. She just doesn't do it on the podcast. See?
Okay.
I do it on the podcast sometimes.
Once in a while.
Like, for instance, you know, the whole dating Chanel thing. Send me your resumes.
Oh, Lord.
Anyways.
So funny.
And I'm just putting this out there. So if you're watching the show and you know, are not on other places other than Spotify, let us know where so that we can put this podcast where you're listening to as well. I mean, we're all over the freaking place, but you know, there's so much out there. So let us know, and I personally like
do our best. So Podbean is a good one.
Yes. Well, okay. We'll try it. We'll see. I don't know. It's on my laundry list of things to do for Dr. J. It's getting this long.
You'll check it off when you check it off. It's fine. I'm patient.
Before I die, it will happen. How's that? All right. Go donate to Bubbles for Vets. Go on there. Check out their live silent auction. And see you next week, guys.
Tampa will all be there.
Go see. And then you get to bug Dr. J in person.
Yes, you do. Come poke me on the shoulder. It's fine.
And is Dr. Duttori going to be there too?
He will.
Wow. Oh my God. Well, if all three of you there, it's going to be like
coming. It'll be awesome.
Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and the Funny Men all at the same time.
There's no telling what we're going to get into.
Wow. I know.
With you, fun bunch. I wish I was there this weekend.
We'll take lots of pictures.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.
Thank you. Be safe.